and welcome. My name is Kate Sonka. I'm the executive director for a nonprofit in the US called Teach Access. We work to support educators to teach about accessibility and disability so students learn about it and go out and create accessible products. And I'm joined here today by Shuaib Chalklen. He is from the African Disability Forum. We're here to talk about OPDs today. So how are you today? I'll have you introduce yourself first.
Oh, yeah. Let me introduce myself and my name to Shuaib Chalklen. I'm the executive director of the African Disability Forum, and we are a African regional membership-based organization. We have membership in 45 countries in Africa, and these are all national OPD federations.
So you're a busy guy, is what I'm hearing.
I am a busy guy, yes.
Excellent. So first question for you.
Yeah.
How have OPDs been able to influence digital accessibility policies or standards across the regions that you're working in? You could choose one or many. And what made that possible?
Well, let me start by policies, because there's not a single country in Africa that doesn't have a policy on disability. And it comes about through the lobbying and advocacy, kind of strategies that national federations undertake, engaging with the governments and so forth. That is how the policies come about. But I wouldn't say that standards come about through that as well, unless you're talking about accessibility, the building code, and so on. But digital accessibility specifically, this is something very new, and proposes us a new challenge to OPDs, and they have to find new ways of engaging governments, private sector, mobile telephone companies, IT companies, and also the government, of course, to develop a new standard on digital accessibility. But it's something new and something that OPDs are also grappling with, just as they were grappling with AI, for instance. We are also aware that there is a need for standards that we haven't engaged with.
Excellent. Are you seeing similarities, differences across the region? Are there spaces where that work looks the same, or is it pretty different across the 45? You said it was 45 countries that you're working with?
Yeah, no, it's completely different. I would say that if you look at Southern Africa, for instance, I would say South Africa, where I'm from, it's quite good, the use of technology, the digital internet penetration is very high, the highest in Africa. And it goes for countries like Namibia as well, and other surrounding countries. But if you look at Central Africa, it may be different. There may be different challenges there. But the one thing that is consistent throughout Africa is the use of mobile phones, smartphones. And you can get a cheap smartphone today, and I believe it should be cheaper to make it more accessible, more affordable. But smartphones is the one thing that everybody has in common with. But if you look at standards and policies, policies are basically the same, because it's based on the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and that document being ratified by most countries in Africa. So, it's almost universal.
Excellent. So in thinking about some of the challenges that you're seeing that OPDs are facing, what do those look like? Whether that's with engaging, it could be tech developers, it could be government, maybe donors, industry. Kind of, what is it looking like in terms of challenges that you're seeing?
Yeah, look, if you look at the way OPDs in Africa operate, right? They operate basically in partnership with international NGOs, many of them. This is not always an ideal situation, but most of them do. And one of the challenges they face is that, once a project is finished, say they've in partnership with an INGO, this international NGO, they've got a project for 5 years, after 5 years, here today, gone tomorrow. And then they struggle to sustain themselves. So there's this resource problem, it's not sustainable, it's not consistent, and that's one of the things that they grapple with in many, many parts of Africa, especially West and Central Africa, sometimes in East Africa as well, and in many countries in Southern Africa. So this is one of the problems that we're facing. Resources is a big problem. It's one of the biggest problems that we have. So if we want to make progress in developing standards on digital accessibility, we want to improve the usage of technology and artificial intelligence and so forth, then we need to have a situation where not OPDs, but people with disabilities in Africa generally are able to access this technology, and that takes some resources. And that's where governments, most of all, should step in and provide the necessary resources. And I personally believe that they can, and they should.
I'm curious in thinking about, you were mentioning, as people step back and what does that look like for longevity? Can you think of an example or share examples where any of the stakeholders that have been working with OPDs have become true allies? And what does that look like? What is it?
What
Yeah.
does true allies mean?
So true allies, so thinking about being there for sort of the sustainability of a project or an organization, continuing to work together rather than kind of come in, do some work and then leave and sort of abandon an organization. Have you seen examples where maybe organizations are coming in to work with OPDs across any of the member states that you work with?
I haven't experienced that.
No. Okay, great. Okay, so next question for you.
But
yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah, please.
go ahead and explore that a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting, the question that you're asking, because many of the partners that you have, come in for a specific project, and some of them will say, look, you can't use our funds to pay your rent, your office rent, for instance. Oh, it sounds absurd. I may pose the question, who pays your rent?
Right.
Yeah, but because you said I can't pay rent for 2 months. How do you pay rent?
Right. So I'm especially even thinking about the work that we're doing. We're based in the U.S. And we've been working outside of the U.S. as well, across Europe, as well as Brazil. And we've for the last year been working with some universities here in Kenya, working to train faculty and support faculty in thinking about what does it look like for them to teach topics of disability and teach topics of accessibility to their students. And that's something that's always in my mind. How can we be good allies in this work? We are an NGO. We don't have deep pockets. We don't have a lot of funds. So it isn't always I can provide funding. But we have a lot of resources, a lot of training that's free and open. But what does that look like for organizations, whether it's mine or others, coming to support, to work together in a way that's truly genuine? I'm curious if you've kind of seen any of that or have any insights to think about that.
No, but I could think that, if the financial resources dries up, there are other things you can do. Like you said, there's training material that you've developed jointly that you can continue working on. You can expand it. It doesn't cost a lot of money. But I think the most important thing is just not to shut the door and walk away. How do you remain available? That, for me, is an important thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. Question here. For young persons with disabilities who want to lead or join advocacy movements, what's the best way to get involved with OPDs, or even shape digital inclusion themselves? What are some ideas we could give to the younger generations?
Well, my advice is that, if there's no organization near you, start your own organization. It doesn't take a lot. A few people can come together, agree on a name of the organization and their mission, and what their values are, what they hold dear to themselves, and what they want to project onto the world, and a set of activities, that they derive from that values and the mission that they set for themselves. And if they take that set of activities and carry on, that's how you develop an OPD, and then you join the larger movement afterwards. But it's easy nowadays. You can use a cell phone, a smartphone, Google, in each country, what is the National Federation of People with Disabilities in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, whatever. You find out who's there and contact them, and express your interest and get involved. And if your passion is technology, if you feel passionate about technology, just say it, and there may be like-minded people, there may be a working group, but also to engage with technology companies, cell phone providers, and so forth. There's very big companies here like Safaricom and all those big companies express an interest. But the one thing we must never forget to do is never let the governments, states, parties, never let them off the hook. Right? Don't function as if they don't exist and they do not play a role, because they do. And they have a responsibility, and challenge them. That's what I say. But yeah, if I had to go back, I did a lot of that myself in my own personal life. But I would say to young people with disabilities, organize yourselves, be part of a bigger movement, and challenge the government, challenge corporates, big companies, engage with them. But you don't always, and this is the thing, you don't always have to take an axe to the door. Sometimes you can just knock on the door. Right? Don't be too radical. Just knock on the door sometimes, it works. And then you can engage, and never give up. But be consistent in your effort and persistent, and you will achieve results. That's what I believe.
I really appreciate that, and I think this notion of kind of lead from where you are or start from where you are is so powerful, and we see that across many places where you don't have to, like you said, be the most radical coming through the door, but if you're doing something from where you are, that's still impactful and powerful and contributing. We're nearing the end. I'm curious if there's anything that you wish I would have asked you or that you'd like to highlight before we finish up here.
No, I think I just think that, as in my role as executive director of the African Disability Forum, that we have an opportunity in Africa to mobilize the voice of Africans with disabilities. Right? And as you just said now, where you are is good enough. But we need to join it also, at national, sub-regional, regional level, in the whole of Africa and so forth, so that we can engage also with the African Union Commission, and global corporate companies, and so forth, so that we express our voice, because with our voice comes our dignity. Without voice, there's no dignity. So that is the challenge that I would like to express to young people with disabilities and leadership of organizations of persons with disabilities. Raise your voice, and hold those in power to account.
That sounds like a call to action to me.
Call to action.
There it is. Thank you so much, Shuaib. I really appreciate your time today. And thank you to everyone for joining.